Welcome to another episode of Rewrite the Rules. Today we have an exciting guest with us, Deepti, who's the CEO of Go Sports Foundation. Welcome, Deepti, to our episode of Rewrite the Rules. Deepti, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about Go Sports Foundation and what's your role in it.
Hi, Ritu. Thank you so much for having me. Go Sports is a 15-year-old organization. We as Indians keep wondering why we don't win medals at the Olympics. I think that narrative bothered us, and that's when we decided to do something about it and really create a pathway for young, talented athletes to get to the Olympics and Paralympics. So it's been a long, exciting journey for us, and currently as we speak, Asian Games, India for the first time has crossed 70 medals. But I think as an organization, what we believe is, in India, there are very few areas that you can look to for role models. It's typically cricket or it's Bollywood. And we just felt the life of an athlete is a really difficult one. And to pursue, to get to the Olympics, you have to sacrifice a lot. And the whole pursuit of excellence is something that we are very excited about. And the ability to give talent an opportunity to excel and be the best versions of themselves is something that we do at Go Sport.
Right, and that's so inspiring. Deepti, tell us a little bit about your role in Go Sports.
So at Go Sports, I've been here actually 11 years. I'm a former athlete myself. I played tennis for Karnataka, and I also was playing basketball, part of the Bangalore University team. Loved it, come from a family of sportsmen, my mom, my dad. So I think it's just very much part of our growing up and our DNA.
Yeah.
So, I went on to do the typical things of doing my MBA at Symbiosis Pune. I had an internship at Google and Walt Disney Channel, and then at some point I decided that I'll sit for campus placements, and I got into HSBC. So I was with the bank for 6 years, and that was an amazing stint for me, just in terms of learning to be a full professional, how to handle money, meeting some incredible people, having some great mentors, bosses. I did all of that, but I would constantly wake up and wonder, what am I doing? What is my purpose? And that's when 2012 Olympics was going on, and that was really my turning point, where I was sitting in a very informal conversation after work when the Olympics was playing, and a bunch of my colleagues were insistent that we'll watch the Premier League instead of the Olympics, and I was really, really upset and shocked that why would we not want to watch India at the Olympics? And everyone's like, you're wasting your time. We can never do it. We're good at everything else, but not in sport. And something really bothered me that day. And, I started looking up what to do, how could I join a federation? And you keep reading all the wrong things about Indian sport, right? It's not always the good things that come up. And I was like, how can I be part of this change? And that's when, through some common friends, I came across Go Sports, and the vision of what they had was something that completely resonated with me. At that time, it was really about empowering India's future Olympians and Paralympians, and I got to meet the trustees and was very inspired by the vision, and came on board in 2012.
Wow, no, it sounds really good. When I looked at your background, I was like, okay, you were a banker, and then from banking you went into sports. So I definitely knew there was a connection of sports, but I'm glad you said that. Deepti, I'm going to switch gears a bit and ask you this, that, sports, and again, that's a very, very layman thing, or maybe this is just an impression people have, sports, and especially sports in India. As you said, cricket is, comes to mind when you think of sports, and men cricket, right? As you're doing this work at Go Sports, how's the lens on female athletes versus male athletes, or what are some of the dynamics and things that you are seeing?
It's interesting that you bring this up, because a lot of people see the success once the medal happens, right? But to get to the Olympics, it's a 8, 10, 15-year journey, and 15 years of never missing training, being, never giving up,
Yeah.
having all kinds of ups and downs and injuries. And I think that pursuit, like I said, the pursuit of really being the best version of yourself, and, being as young as 13, 14, waking up at 5 a.m. And when we started, that's when Abhinav Bindra won India's first Olympic gold medal in 2008. It was the first individual gold medal that India won. And we keep saying we're 1.4 billion people, and how can you have only one gold medal? And in the last Olympics in Tokyo, that's when Neeraj Chopra actually changed. So one became two. It was a very lonely place for very long. But what's really interesting in the last decade of how sport has evolved is, I think a lot of key stakeholders have come together, are working together, whether it's the government, the state bodies, the federations, private organizations, NGOs like us. We're all talking to each other, and we're really bringing in our strengths and coming in and trying to make the ecosystem better, keeping the athlete at the center of it. From a narrative perspective, it was also there that women cannot play sport. If you're a girl, you can't play sport. And if you look at Rio Olympics, the two medals that came from our two girls, Sindhu and from Sakshi. And we also realized that all the investment in women's sport is actually creating more of an impact, because the dedication to just be there and prove, right? It's much more than playing and enjoying the sport, but just proving that I got this opportunity and let me make the most of it. Especially young girls who come from humble backgrounds who've got that opportunity to, go out and play, because there is worry about who's going to marry you, you're going to become black, and you're going to, literally they speak like that, like Kali ho jaungi. And so there are so many aspects of impact that we are, trying to work with and understand and make it better. And we're just fortunate, I think, for us at Go Sports, and for me personally, just working with over 250 athletes, being part of their journeys, has been really, really special for my team and for me, because making it to an athlete's team is a very difficult decision. It's a position of trust, because it's usually their parents and their coach. But today you realize that you need a sports science expert, you need a physio, you need a nutritionist, you need a mental conditioning expert, you need the right equipment, you need to be training at the right place. So what we do is we bring all of that together to the athlete and say, you go play. And when I say we've been extremely fortunate with the change in the rule of CSR, where they included training towards Olympic, Paralympic and rural sport, because till then it was a challenge. We would go to friends, family, runs, fundraising, different kinds of things, but we could never scale at that point of time. But I think CSR kind of allowed us to, create programs and match the SDGs of companies, and, really curate something that's meaningful for the company and, for athletes, and kind of be that platform. So I've seen that trend change in terms of women's sport, how they play, and it's very interesting, the commonalities between women in corporate and women in sport as well.
Yes. Tell me a little bit about the parallels between women in sports and women in leadership, because you're seeing both. I mean, you are in leadership position yourself, but you're also seeing these young women athletes. You've been an athlete yourself. What are the parallels if one were to draw?
I think time. The clock is ticking, even over here. Are you going to give that 10th exam? Are you going to give that 12th exam? The constant narrative is, if you don't make it, what are you going to do? So the constant pressure of them to be able to, deal with that. And then what are you going to do by working so hard? Anyway, you're not going to win a medal for India. So it's like sometimes in corporate, you're told, what are you working so hard? You anyway have a family, or you have someone who will take care of you. Why are you breaking your head so much? So I see that a lot. And then sometimes you hear, if you, kind of train like this and start looking so muscular, who's going to marry you? Just the pressure of looking good. Looking like a woman, are you behaving yourself? Sport is, you can't really be very well behaved in sport. There's so much of emotions. running through you, and you are going to get into the depth of it. So I have a very simple story of very inspiring story of this young girl called Bhavani Devi. She's actually India's first fencer who qualified for the Olympics. Nobody knew fencing 8 years ago, and she's a temple priest's daughter in Chennai. And in a government school, they kind of introduced fencing, and it was one sport where nobody
Wow.
really picked up. And she went into it, and she thoroughly enjoyed. And but there is no really setup in India for fencing, at least 8 years back. And
Yeah.
we're very fortunate to have Rahul Dravid, Pulela Gopichand, and we also had Abhinav Bindra for 7 years on our board. And they would constantly challenge us in terms of, pick up sports which women are playing, pick up sports which are not yet at the Olympics, pick up new sports. So that's when we picked up fencing, we picked up Deepa Karmakar in gymnastics, we picked up taekwondo, we picked up all these unique sports where these girls were doing really well. And today you have more than 800 athletes participating in the nationals of a fencing tournament, with one athlete making it, right? And you have probably 3, 4 more who will qualify for the Paris Olympics. So this whole idea of let one person do it and people will follow. If you see a woman do it, she'll make sure that the community is engaged, children are inspired, and for us, really, that's the circle and the cycle. So lots of stories like that. Rani Rampal is India's hockey captain. She is the daughter of a cart puller in Shabad. It's from the state of Haryana, which has the highest female infanticide. And today
Yeah.
she captained India at Tokyo. She's built her own house, all because of sport. She's today she's broken the cycle of poverty for her family.
Yeah. No, I mean, great. And they're really inspiring stories, and I'm sure listeners are going to be like really inspired and also educated. And one of the things stood out for me, which was common in all these women athletes, of course, is the whole grit and pursuit of excellence, as you've used that word a couple of times, but also role modeling, right? Like some of them there's also on women leaders or on women athletes the thing of role models. One, there's pressure, but also once they do well, they are role models for so many. And I think that's big parallel between them and corporate women leaders is that, because we don't see so many of them. And therefore, once you're there, you kind of, are role models for the younger ones. Deepti, I want to go a little bit in your journey, your journey through the banking years and now in this thing. As a woman leader, what are some of the challenges that you faced?
I always kind of looked at it as opportunities. I never really saw it
Sure.
as challenges. When I joined the bank, we were in the wealth management space, and you're thrown in with targets, and you go through some training, and you're supposed to go and meet those targets by starting month 2, right? So that is one challenge. I think I was very fortunate to have 2 or 3 mentors very early on in the bank who were rock stars in the bank. And for me, just looking at them, I was like, wow, they've done it. I'm sure this is possible, and we can do it. So the role model concept, I think, works everywhere. So
Yeah.
I feel from a challenge perspective, having a plan of action, guiding you, mentoring you, if you get that early on, it kind of makes the process much smoother for you. I'm in touch with every single boss of mine, and I've had the good fortune of people who really, would take the time and sit you down and have these conversations of what you want to do, how can you, develop yourself, and who always encouraged me to do different things. So, whether I was part of a band in Chennai, which our branch manager and, all of us started, and it was called Entertainment Chennai Style. And, that kind of got you to meet everyone at all levels, and music got us together, right? So what are some of the other things you do beyond your work? Work from home culture for the younger generation, they're very happy sitting at home, but actually what you end up remembering and enjoying are those elevator conversations, those pitches outside, like how did you speak, what did someone else say, which I personally feel a lot of this younger lot is so happy with this 3-day work from home and 4-day work from home. They're forgetting all the exciting stuff that work can actually, bring to you. So
That's right.
So I would really, really, put mentorship and having the right people around you who, kind of
Yeah.
help you grow and develop into what you're capable
Yeah.
of, in some sense, taking your
Right.
potential and giving you a platform to do that. So I think my biggest learning in the banking world was uh, don't worry about getting a no from anyone, whether it's your customers or your
Yeah.
seniors or your peers. It's okay. You figure out and come up with a new way. You get
Yeah.
creative, to get your work done and what's in it for them. So I think
Correct.
those are some of the principles I
Yeah.
continue with even today.
Correct. I have a follow-up question because, speaking to so many women leaders like yourself who've been successful in their own ways, this thing about having the right mentors or having allies, having people who've kind of, encouraged you, it's come up very often. How do you seek out these mentors? Do they seek you? How does one reach out?
I personally feel the first step should be from the person seeking the mentor. If you have a
Yeah.
question, if you want to understand some particular thing, or you're in a big group, you ask a particular question which could then trigger a conversation. You do your homework, you show up, and that's something I always say. You need to do your homework. You can't just show up and just ask any question. There is also this saying that no question is silly, but sometimes you could end up asking a silly question which could lead to a conversation as well. But I think not having that ability to not feel rejected, I think is a superpower in itself, because
Yeah.
then you're just saying, hey, I tried, it didn't happen. And I think a large part of that is because of sport. I would totally attribute that to sport because we win and lose on a daily basis. So you're like, okay, try again, figure it out again. Having the courage to go and have that conversation, um, and then also maybe going after the conversation, following up, putting down your thoughts, because a lot of times senior people will say, hey, that's a great thought, why don't you send me a note, why don't you tell me a couple of points, why don't you work on something, and that's a great idea. And most of the times I do that a lot to many people I meet. I don't get anything back. Sometimes you see people who actually go back, and because they feel, oh, this person is so busy, they're not going to really remember. But actually, you will
Yeah.
stand out
Yeah.
if you go back and do that, right? Because a lot of time leaders speak to so many people, and in that, if you end up being on top of the mind and doing what you promised you'll do, you're already building trust. So I think it's
Correct.
it's it's a cycle.
Yeah. No, that's a great advice because you're right. I've heard myself. A lot of women leaders that I work with, and they say, "Oh yeah, but if I reach out to this person, they're so busy. I don't want to disturb them. I don't want to bother them." But as you rightly said, if somebody says, "Okay, send me your thoughts," I think one should follow up, and I think that's such a tangible and that's such an important tip that you've just kind of spelled out. Saying it may sound obvious, but very often we don't do it with the assumption that the other person is going to forget. That's
Yeah,
so
and
true.
today, I mean,
That's so true.
just to kind of close that loop, today it's all become on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, right? So it's like, oh, but
Yeah.
I connected with you on LinkedIn. I said, but that is not closing the loop. I don't know what your thoughts are, right? I just feel
Yeah.
it's a matter of just respect and accountability. You promised something, you
Yeah.
shared a thought, close the loop.
Yep, I like close the loop. That's a good term to use. Um, Deepti, what are some of the things that you think women leaders could do a little bit more of, or you don't see them do enough of?
In the last 11 years, I've had the chance to meet some incredible, women leaders, and also who happen to be women. And I think the constant that you end up seeing is the enthusiasm. I feel has been something which is uh, very, very infectious, right? Because when they have a plan, a thought process, a suggestion, I've just seen that, you kind of get drawn into it and you're like, oh, wow, I want to be part of this vision, or I want to create something like this. So I think that's a commonality that I've seen across, a lot of women leaders, that the purpose is so clear. Whichever position,
Yeah.
vertical, they're driving, again, like I said, we have the Aditya Birla Group, we have IndusInd Bank, we have Sony Pictures, and there are women leaders in all of them. In fact, in Aditya Birla Group, there
Yeah.
is somebody I'm very inspired by is Dr. Pragnya Ram. She's one of the leading, most senior people in corporate communications, and I think she's in her 70s now, and she's still on the rolls because she's so active.
Wow.
And you meet her and you just feel like I have so much to do. If someone at this age is like, bubbling with energy and passion, and
Yeah.
there are no excuses and reasons to not do things.
Right. That's the commonality you see. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Has there been any anecdote or incident in your career that kind of made you think differently, pivot differently, do something very different?
I'm actually somebody who is constantly seeking to do different things and reinvent myself. So I get, when I was in the bank, every 18 months, I would get very bored and be like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And the policy says that every 18 months you can move to a different role. So while I was in wealth, I actually pivoted completely into learning and development. And I came back into business later. I really grew as a person at that point of time because I was doing leadership training for all the people who joined, sales training, and the bank, there's this particular investment training. Only after you clear that, you can start selling products for the bank. And very, very few trainers were certified on that. And because of that, I got to go to Dubai and train the NRI team, and all this in my 6 years. It takes a long time for people to get such opportunities.
Right.
And I was like on the roll doing that, but it was because I took that risk and, I jumped into
Yeah.
it. But even now,
Yeah.
I'm constantly, I do a lot of theater. I do a little bit of, acting. I went and did this course in Pondicherry. It's a very rigorous 10-day course called Adi Shakti. It's a training and actors program. But you wake up at 6 and you start with some sort of training, and you sleep at 10 and you're back again up. And it's like a really hectic, but I just feel like every 1-2 years, I like to do something which puts me outside my comfort zone. When I left the bank, I had written down this list of 8-10 things that I have to do. Only then it makes sense for me to have given up such a cushy job to come here. I'd given myself 1 year and said that in this 1 year, if I do all this and go sports, we can raise some money, then I'll stay here. If not, I have to go back to the bank.
Yeah.
So I constantly have a list that I'm pursuing, that I want to do. I had written down that I want to trek to the Everest Base Camp, and I did that in 2013, a year after I quit the bank. So,
Nice.
it's challenging the mind, the body, constantly, because I feel when you do that, then you don't get that monotony doesn't set in, and you keep doing the same thing in a different way.
That's a big takeaway for me in terms of, and I'm sure for our listeners, is that work is one thing, but pursuing something else, pursuing interest outside of work can be we don't think about it in short term, but long term, that can be such a big, thing, energy giver, right? It really fuels you to kind of thing, right? I know you are relatively young, and you are quite young. But still, if you were to look back, what advice would you have to your younger self?
Have fun. Growth is uncomfortable. So go through those phases.
Okay.
I've been a risk taker, but if I could tell my younger self, I would still say you should have taken some more risks.
More risk. Wow. Okay. Okay. Before I summarize, it's just one more question. How do you define success?
I think contentment, the ability to feel content. You're ambitious, you want to do a lot more things, but you're very happy where you are. And for me, I think that's success. I've had, my own personal struggles. I was in a marriage, I got divorced, but life happens, and life will continue to happen at different points. But I think to be able to be graceful, let go, and be content. I think for me, really,
Yeah.
that's success.
Yeah.
Because I think I work pretty hard. I'm very ambitious. But when I look back, that feeling of, hey, you know what, I'm very happy. I took all those decisions and I'm here today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Great. No,
so yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And, it's been a great conversation. For me, if I were to summarize my top 3 takeaways from our conversation,
Yeah.
would be one, pursuing something outside of work. So having something which you are very active with outside of work, I think it's so important. Sometimes we just focus everything on our work. The second thing I noted, which you said, is that the ability to not feel rejected. And you said that's a superpower. And I think that stood out for me, the ability to not take rejections personally. And the third one was about closing the loop. I love that word. It's like, if you've had a conversation with somebody, make sure you close the loop, whether it's, you promise to follow up, you promise to have another chat, promise to set up another call, whatever it is, but close the loop to build that credibility. There was so much more, but I would say those were the top 3 that stood out for me. Thank you so much, Deepti. I'm sure our listeners are really going to enjoy this conversation. Thanks once again. And it was really nice talking to you.
Really nice. I've also ordered your book, so I'm looking forward to read that. But thank you so much for having me, and I
Thank you.